He was born into privilege, surrounded by wealth and comfort. But despite all the riches in his father's mansion, one thing was missing: his sight. Doctors said nothing could be done, and his world stayed dark. Then came the maid, a woman society overlooked because of her skin. One ordinary evening, something unexplainable happened when she touched his eyes. Was it a miracle, or something the world will never accept? What unfolded next would challenge not only their lives, but the way we see humanity itself. In a house where chandeliers glittered and gold framed every corner, the young heir lived in silence and shadows. His name was Daniel, son of a wealthy businessman whose empire stretched across cities. But Daniel's world was different. Blind from birth, he had never seen the brightness others took for granted. Every sound, every touch, every voice painted his reality. Around him, servants moved like whispers, silent, obedient, almost invisible. Among them was Grace, a maid who worked quietly, her presence hardly noticed except when duty called. She was not just poor, but also black, a double weight in a home where status and skin dictated respect. Still, Grace carried herself with quiet strength, performing tasks no one else wanted, enduring looks that cut deeper than words. To Daniel, however, her footsteps were different. He could always tell when it was her who entered the room. Her voice had a warmth others lacked, a patience that made the darkness less heavy. Yet beneath the routines of wealth and servitude, tension lingered. Daniel's father despised weakness, and to him, Grace was just another reminder of it, someone to be tolerated, never valued. But fate was waiting. What seemed like an ordinary evening in that mansion was about to turn into something extraordinary. A moment that would test boundaries of faith, prejudice, and the very definition of humanity itself. Life inside the mansion looked perfect from the outside, but beneath the glittering chandeliers lay cracks that could no longer be hidden. Daniel's father hosted parties where laughter echoed through grand halls, but to Daniel it was only sound, hollow, distant, and cold. Grace would guide him quietly to his seat, making sure he never stumbled, making sure the world didn't see how vulnerable he truly was. Yet every time she touched his hand, whispers followed. Guests noticed. Their eyes narrowed. Some laughed, others sneered, but all carried the same poison in their gaze. How dare a maid, a black woman, show kindness to a son of privilege? Daniel couldn't see it, but he felt it. The tension in the air, the silence when she entered, the way voices dropped to whispers. His father's words were harsher. "Don't let her near you too often," he warned. "People will talk. We don't owe her anything but her wages." Still, Daniel found comfort in Grace. She read to him when no one else bothered. She described the colors of the world, even though he couldn't see them. For the first time in his sheltered life, he felt connected, human. But every act of kindness she showed became fuel for resentment among others. One evening, after a gathering of his father's wealthy friends, the whispers grew louder. Daniel overheard fragments of conversations. "She's getting too close. He depends on her. Dangerous." What they meant by dangerous wasn't about safety. It was about control, about keeping barriers between privilege and servitude, between white and black, firmly intact. Days later, the unthinkable happened. Daniel had stumbled in the garden, scraping his hand. Servants stood still, hesitant to touch him, until Grace rushed forward. She held his hand gently, wiped the blood away, and for a moment, their world seemed to stop. Daniel felt something he couldn't explain, warmth, almost like light breaking through the darkness. But when his father saw them, his fury was instant. "Enough!" he roared. "Don't ever touch him again!" The command wasn't just anger. It was fear. Fear that society's rules were being broken. Fear that his son might see humanity where prejudice had drawn lines. Grace lowered her eyes, humiliated in front of the household, but Daniel's heart pounded. For the first time, he questioned the world he had been raised in. Why should the hand that gave him comfort be treated as unworthy? Why did her skin dictate the limits of her care? Tension grew sharper with each passing day. Grace was ordered to keep her distance, but Daniel longed for her presence. And deep inside, something was changing. He couldn't explain it, but whenever Grace's voice reached him, a spark stirred, a strange pressure behind his eyes, a sensation he had never known before. He didn't realize it yet, but the impossible was drawing closer. A moment was coming that would shatter the walls of the mansion, exposing truths his father desperately wanted hidden. And when it happened, there would be no turning back. It happened on a night heavy with silence, when even the air in the mansion felt tense. Daniel sat alone, his world as dark as ever, when Grace entered quietly against orders. She whispered his name, and in that moment, her hand brushed his face. What followed was something no one could explain. A sharp heat surged through him, his heart raced, and for the first time the shadows seemed to tremble. Daniel gasped, clutching at her hand. He blinked, and faint shapes flickered. Light, color, blurred outlines of the world he had never known. His chest tightened with disbelief. "Grace, I can see something." But joy lasted only seconds. His father stormed in, his face twisted in rage. He saw Grace by his son's side and erupted, shouting that she was forbidden to touch him. Guests and servants crowded the doorway, their whispers swelling into open condemnation. "This is madness," one sneered. "A maid cannot heal a master's son." Another spat. "It's witchcraft! She should be cast out!" Grace stood frozen, every accusation striking her like a blow. Daniel's father advanced, voice booming with authority. "Get out of my house! You are nothing here. Nothing but the color of your skin." Daniel's voice broke through, trembling but strong. "No, father. She gave me what all your wealth never could. She gave me sight." The room erupted, gasps, anger, disbelief. Daniel could barely make out faces, but what he saw was enough to pierce him. Hatred, fear, denial. The gift that should have been a miracle was twisted into scandal. Grace trembled, not from fear of her power, but from knowing the weight of what came next. And in that single, breathless moment, the question hung heavy. Would this miracle unite them, or destroy them both forever? The mansion never felt the same after that night. For Daniel, the first flickers of sight were a miracle, but also a burden. Every time he opened his eyes, he saw more than colors and shapes. He saw the truth, the contempt in his father's glare, the fear in the servants' whispers, the cruelty of a world that would rather deny a miracle than accept who it came through. Grace was dismissed within days, her belongings tossed out as though her presence had been a stain on the family's honor. Yet Daniel could not forget. Each time he blinked, each time the light grew clearer, he remembered the warmth of her touch, the kindness that gave him a gift no doctor, no fortune, no father could ever provide. He searched for her, but society had its ways of burying people like Grace, silencing voices that threatened the order of things. Still, her impact remained. For Daniel, every moment of sight was a reminder that humanity is not measured by wealth, color, or power. It is measured by compassion. This story is not just about one young man and the maid who changed his life. It is about the walls we build between us, walls of prejudice and fear. And it is about what happens when those walls are challenged by something undeniable: truth, kindness, love. But here is the haunting reality. In our world, miracles are often ignored if they come from the wrong hands. Lives are dismissed. Humanity is overlooked. And the question remains: how many more graces will be cast aside before we truly see? So I ask you, when the next act of injustice unfolds, will we turn away, or will we finally open our eyes?